Welcome to the latest episode of Five on the Floor on the Five Reasons Sports Network. Thanks for joining us on your favorite podcast app, on Apple Podcasts, on Android, Spotify, or the Five Reasons YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe to Off the Floor. That's our Discord server. Link right here in the description. Access to 10 channels and our stage shows. Most heat information, celebration, consternation, conversation. It's all there. Check it out. It's Off the Floor. It's the link right here in the description. Bypass the Apple upcharge. Pay $2.99. You can cancel at any time. Also, check out the great sponsors of the Five Reasons Sports Network. Includes Prize Picks. Use the code 5 FIVE. Put down $5. You get $50 to play right away. Prize Picks is the daily fantasy partner of the Five Reasons Sports Network. Also keeps us going. So if you want to keep the content coming, this is a good way to do it, and it doesn't cost you anything. You just put down the code 5, and they give you $50. So go to prizepicks.com, Google Play Store, the Apple App Store. Make sure you use the code FIVE. And now, today's episode.
Mercy, luxurious, Heat Nation, yeah, Mercy and Lago, down to Biscayne, yay, five on the floor, ride for my dogs, where here's the thing, you can check the score, hustle hard, couple scars, wearing rubber frauds, down to Biscayne. Kept the floor playing, got it all banned. Y'all seen the block, stop with one hand. And Pat we trust, Inspire have the guts. We're here to bring the heat, y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to Five on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, Alex Toledo, Brady Hawk, and others from the Five Reasons Sports Network. Also, make sure to subscribe to Off the Floor for the most heat anywhere.
All right, welcome back to Five on the Floor. Here's today's floor plan. I'm Ethan Skolnick. You can follow me at Ethan J. Skolnick at Five Reasons Sports. I got Alex Toledo. You can follow him at Tropical Blanket. Alex was also on with me and Brady for the post-game show after the Miami Heat beat the Chicago Bulls to advance to the second play-in game. They will play the Hawks on Friday. That's in Atlanta, 7 o'clock start. This is what you got to do to get through the play-in every year. It's Chicago and Atlanta. That's where Miami is these days. But actually, they are considered to have a pretty good chance in this game. The Hawks are a 1.5-point favorite, I believe. I was actually surprised that they're a favorite, even though they're at home. Alex and I are going to get into the keys to this game. Probably do another episode before the game actually starts on Friday. And as we mentioned, make sure you're signed up to Prize Picks and Off the Floor before all of this starts. But this Hawks team, Alex, a little bit different than some teams we've seen them put out there in the past. Quinn Snyder is the head coach. They did win 40 games this year. They did, though, even though they lost arguably their best player, certainly one of their two best players in Jalen Johnson. He was having a borderline all-star season. In fact, there was some conversation about his being on the all-star team might have ended up keeping Tyler Hero out. Of course, Jalen Johnson got hurt before the postseason started, talking about a physical wing who could do a lot of different things for them. They haven't had him. So they've been reliant more on Dyson Daniels, a defender who they acquired in the DeJounte Murray trade, and also Rishad Shea, their first pick overall, who really came on in the last 2 months of the season, although he did not play well in the play-in game against Orlando. Also, Heat fans are used to seeing Clint Capella. It's now Okongwu, who is their primary big. Plays a lot the way that Capella played, though, above-the-rim type player. Has given Bam some trouble in the past, and we'll see how that goes. But as we go through the five keys to this game, I mean, as I look at this game, it comes down to number one thing, so I'll let you play off of this, and then I'll let you give the second one. Trae Young puts up his worst numbers against the Miami Heat. His second worst shooting percentage in regular season games is against the Heat. He's under 40%. The only team he shoots worse against is Utah, and that's fractionally. That's with playing 23 games against the Heat in his career, which is the second most games he's played against anybody. And it doesn't even include the play-in and the playoffs. And if you include those games, he actually shoots under 37% against the Heat because he shoots 32% in those games. They've done a number on him in a variety of different ways that started, not started, but the primary guy was Gabe Vincent in that playoff series a couple years ago. And now the Heat have a guy in Davion Mitchell who's an even better defender than Gabe Vincent. For you, I know you're a Trae fan. Trae's done some good things this year. Obviously, the assist total is way up there. He's a great lob thrower. It's beyond just the distance scoring, although he does stretch your defense. but he's not been very good against the Heat, at least from an efficiency standpoint, in most of the games. There's the one game, of course, where he, said it was over and Miami came way back. And then, of course, he got into it with Jimmy in that playoff series early on. And I thought that took him out of it. Are you comfortable with the way that the Heat will be able to defend Trae Young? I guess we start there.
No doubt. I just think it'll be interesting to see what they do, as far as primary matchup, as far as how much help they're going to send. I'm interested to see if it'll be similar to what they did last night where, they kind of just trusted their guys, because it's a little bit different of a dilemma here, right, with Trae, because, you're not starting Davion. And like last night they had, for example, Bam started as a primary defender on Josh Giddey, which we spoke about on postgame. Are they going to do that again? I mean, I would be interested in seeing something like that. Like that's kind of a, it's one thing to do it on Josh Giddey, who is somebody that he can kind of give space to and kind of, you hope that a guy like that settles for a tough contested shot over Bam. But Trae is a different story, right? He's going to have to stick to Trae and chase him over screens, which we've seen Bam do, occasionally. I wonder if Spo just says F it and just does it from the start of the game. I think that would be kind of a cool tone setter. And he obviously trusts Bam a whole lot. So that's one way that they can go about it. Or they can try sticking Wiggins on him, which Wiggins started off on Kobe White last night. I think Davion had a lot of time on White as well. And so I'm interested to see like who's going to be the primary to start off there. And then from there, like what are the principles going to be? Are they going to send multiple guys because they're so depleted, right? Like it's not just missing Jalen Johnson, which is a huge blow. But the fact that like they don't really have a lot of depth, like their bench right now with the team as it stands, like it's just not good. So that he can kind of like it's kind of a decent team to like they've got guys you can help off of, right? And I think they might go back into playing that game, but I can kind of see it going either way. Like I think the other guys are not going to beat them one-on-one, right? Like like Mohamed Gay, for example, like guys like that who's a starting power forward right now. They don't have Capella right now. They don't have Larry Nance right now. They traded away Bogdanovich. They don't have DeJounte anymore. And like we've already talked about, no Jalen Johnson. Like they're missing a lot of and they traded away DeAndre Hunter this season. Right. They've traded away or have lost a lot of depth and a lot of just players that can help Trae along the way. So I think it is a good matchup for them to kind of send a lot. But I just think there's a fine balance with how you guard him and how many bodies you send, because he's such a great passer and because he can stretch you out, like you mentioned. And like in these last couple of games that the Heat played against the Hawks, they gave up like 122 and 118 points. That can't happen. That can't happen. And it's not because Trae went off. He had the last game he played well against the Heat scoring wise, but you're right. Almost always he's going to go under his points line almost every time against the Heat other than last game. So you got to neutralize him not only as a scorer, but as a playmaker, because that's really where he gets off. Like just looking at his games versus the Heat this season, 15 assists, 14 assists, 12 assists, 8 assists, right? Like that's where he can really get going. So that's why I think it's not as easy as just, make somebody else beat you, because he's going to find those guys and find them in good spots, even with him being so small, because he's such an advanced passer. So I'm looking forward to see how they neutralize him, because that's obviously like, the biggest key.
You mentioned their bench. They're currently playing Terrence Mann, George Niang, and Caris LeVert off their bench. So like three guys that you're familiar with, but not really knockdown shooters. I mean, Niang's had some moments against Miami. We'll probably see the slow-mo versus George Niang matchup that will set us back to like the beta prime time. But it's going to be very slow. But I mean, as far as Trae goes, I think the key is not overreacting to the scoring. They've done a good job on the scoring. I mean, if he wants to shoot from 30 feet, he's going to make a couple, but I'm okay with it. It is his ability to throw the ball over the top, the lobs, the get in the paint. They've got to be on point with that. So I guess the last question on this topic, and then I want to move it to number 2 here, is do you change the starting lineup? Because you mentioned using Bam. I mean, they could just start Davion and they solve the problem, right? Like, or do you think this is just as simple? Because his numbers against Davion are terrible. I looked them up; they're bad. Not that I'm surprised. Okay,
that was actually going to be my number 2. Is what they do with.
Well, go for it. Go for it. Let's make it number 2 because we need 5. What do you do with the lineup? You want to move Davion to the starting lineup, or you leave Burks in there?
I think you can really go either way. Like, not to sound like I don't want to pick a side, but I do think like we saw proof of kind of what Bam can do in this. Like, this is the whole point with starting Ware, right? Is that you can all of a sudden yourself up to possibilities like this, where you still got a guy down there and Ware who can protect the paint and grab rebounds for you, while Bam can kind of be used in all different types of ways as a defender, like, you know, in order to kind of show off all the things he can do, right? Whereas before he mostly had to stick to being in the paint as much as possible, and then their weak side help would end up being too small. Like that part of their defense is different now, so they can afford to just stick Bam on Trey at least for a little bit and see how it goes. It might not be like, maybe they just end up like not going for it because they're trying to keep Bam out of foul trouble, and maybe it'll tire him out too much trying to chase around screens and then also go back. But maybe they don't go with that. Maybe they just trust Wiggins to do it. But I do think like it's right there for Spo. If he really wants to, he can get a head start on starting Davion, because he might want to do that, right? Like, not to jinx things and get too ahead of ourselves, but he might want to do that against the Cavs, right? Like starting 2 all-star guards. And so if he feels like he's going to go back to that against the Cavs, which again, he might not be thinking that way. He's probably just thinking about this game. You know, maybe it's a good thing to get a head start and kind of get in a game really quick with Davion back as a starter. And it just makes so much sense because you just put him on Trey and have, you know, guys helping from other spots. Like, I just think they've got a couple of different ways that they can go about it here, but that's just going to be one thing that I'm monitoring.
Well, the other thing I could look at is if Larson's healthy, he could use Larson. But I don't think he would, because I think if it's not going to be Davion, he'll go for the spacing. I'm curious, though, if Duncan has done enough lately for him to feel comfortable starting Davion and pulling Burks from the rotation entirely. Because I don't know. I don't know if Duncan's had like one solid game in a couple weeks. So that concerns me a little bit.
Burks been pretty good.
Yeah, as Burks has been pretty good, but I it's hard for me to see him bringing Duncan and Burks off the bench. I know he's used it a little bit this year. He has, but I don't see him doing it. So we'll see if he plays out. All right, let's get to number 3 here, and then get to a couple more after the break. This is, to me, the most the obvious one on the Heat's offensive side, which is can Tyler Hero get free consistently against Dyson Daniels? Because we know that that's going to be the matchup. They're going to put Daniels on him. Use his length, his ability in the passing lanes. Maybe Tyler makes some decisions that aren't the best decisions. I thought he played, even with the 7 turnovers, like we talked about this on postgame, like I don't think he played a mistake-prone game. Okay, it wasn't just the making the shots. I thought overall his decision-making was good in the last game. But Dyson Daniels will make you think. And we've seen at times Tyler has struggled with this type of player. How much do you lean into just Tyler in this game, or how do you free him up against Daniels if Daniels is going to play heavy minutes?
Well, I think you saw, was it the last game that they played against the Hawks, that Tyler played well despite Dyson being the guy? You know, using him and the fact that, you know, Dyson's going to be all over him, like you can use that to your advantage like they did last time, where like, okay, you've got that part kind of nailed down. Like, he's going to be all over Hero, right? So essentially we're going to play 4-on-4, right? We're gonna, if he's gonna be face guarding Tyler Hero and playing aggressive there, we're gonna play 4-on-4 and attack their other guys. It's kind of like in a different way, in a different sense, what teams would do against Bam in the past. We're like, okay, we'll get this switch up top, and then after that, like, you know, we kind of have, you know, space to play here. You know, you manipulate the matchups in that way. So it's like, okay, that's what you're gonna do. Then, you know, we can go to Wiggins, we can go to Bam. Right? Like, they've got other guys that they can potentially set up offense to do. And of course, you know, extremely importantly here for this matchup, the off-ball movement. Like, it was great last time. You know, the fact he was able to play as a cutter. He was able to, you know, leverage his 3-point shooting gravity, but just running around off ball. Like, this is a perfect game to show that out. And Tyler has had games throughout the season post Jimmy trade where he's shown it out. And that's the one, honestly, that sticks in my mind, especially because it was so recently, right? Like, and Dyson being a guy who is like a decoy candidate as a guard, you know, for Tyler to, you know, correctly recognize, hey, this is a great opportunity for me to play off ball and create things that way. Like, I 100% think it's going to go back in that direction. You know, he's still, of course, going to handle the ball and get his fair share of usage, which makes sense. But I think we're going to go back to seeing a little bit more of that balance between on and off ball for this game here with Dyson. And then a lot of other times they're just going to try to get him to switch off, and he's going to attack if he gets just about anybody else that isn't Dyson on him. It's going to seem like playing on easy mode.
And that's true, especially because of the things you mentioned. No DeAndre Hunter, and no Jalen Johnson. So there are two wings who would have given Tyler problems beyond Daniels are not there. So that is a big advantage. I feel comfortable with Tyler working on Terrence Mann. I feel comfortable if LeVert's on him. LeVert's not a consistent defender. Reset Shea. He'll
probably better guys than the Bulls had to offer, though. I will say that.
They do. I mean, I didn't think Chicago was going to give Tyler much problems. They typically haven't. But on this team, I think this team had the length and the wings to do it, but I don't think they have the number of them now. So it really is to me about Daniels primarily. I think Tyler will be okay, but I think it's you mentioned getting off the ball. I think it's going to be quick decisions. I think him, and that's why it wouldn't hurt to have Mitchell in the starting lineup with him, which is something to look at because I think we've seen Mitchell has the ability to put the ball on the floor, get a foot in the paint, create plays for others. They seem to have a natural chemistry. The two of them. I polled this today, like who's been Tyler's best backcourt partner, and Mitchell is a close second to Dragic in that poll. I never thought that Tyler had great chemistry with Kyle, and with Kendrick Nunn, he did when he first came in, but of course Kendrick flamed out. But other than that, it's been tough to find the right fit with Tyler, and it seems like Davion understands when to defer to Tyler. Of course, Terry was not the right fit. Davion seems to understand these things, and putting him in the starting lineup with Tyler probably would make some sense in this case, and I wouldn't be stunned if he does it, even if it's just for this game, even if it's not about Cleveland, although it would allow him to roll it into Cleveland if they win this game on a short turnaround because they're going to play. They would play on Sunday. All right, we'll get to two more things here for this matchup after the break. But first, a word from Cousins USA.
And now it's time for Who's on the Move, sponsored by our friends over at Cousins USA Moving and Storage, family owned and operated since 1996. They can service both residential and commercial moves, whether you're going across town, across the state, across country, and even across the globe. They have a 15,000 square foot private warehouse in Lauderhill, Broward County. The number one priority for Cousins Moving is transparency and being honest with their customers. They have a very low turnover, with most of their movers working for them for over 10 years. So find them online at Cousins Moving on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, or visit the website at www.cousinsusa.com/5RSN. They've got an exclusive offer through 5RSN. You get 5 free wardrobe boxes with your next move, so there's no need to pack your clothes away in suitcases. Just mention 5 reasons. And now, who's on the move?
You're on the move on this one. You get to pick the next because I got one to close this one up. What else you got?
So I hope this doesn't take away from what you were going to pick because I'm kind of picking two guys here, Bam and Wiggins. And this kind of ties back to what we were just talking about, but, with the Dyson Daniels conversation, but not only, which by the way, what I said before about the Heat giving up 122 to the Hawks in the last game, and the other game I said 118, it was actually 131. So that's besides from what I'm going to say right now, but I just want to correct myself there. Their defense needs to,
There was also a game in which the Heat scored 86, right?
Yeah. And that ties into what I'm going to say here, right? Like their offense, like if Taylor is not having a particularly great game, if he's not doing what he did last game where he's being effective in that off-ball role, and if he's struggling a little bit, there's going to be some pressure on Bam and Wiggins. And even if he is playing well, like this is a game where, the rest of the guys on there, they don't have many stoppers, as we've mentioned. Like Okongwu was not somebody that's given Bam like a whole lot of problems in the past, even though he's obviously a solid player. Wiggins is a guy who has been very solid for the Heat when he has played as far as the offense. So I think, it gave you a pretty quiet 20 last night. And just in general, everything about him is pretty quiet. So I think it could be a game where you see, continued shot attempts like we did last night from Bam and Wiggins, and I could see just better games in general. I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case if, like Tyler had, finished with 23 points or something, right? And Bam and Wiggins were kind of in that mix there in the 20s. Like I could totally see something like that. And it's a game for them to figure out I think to show off some of that balance of what the three guys can do, which is something that I still think they're trying to figure out since Wiggins has been so in and out of the lineup, and inevitably when he's out, Tyler and Bam are the ones taking on the brunt of the load there. So I think it's a game where we'll see the other two pieces of the pie there of that quote unquote big three that nobody called the big three kind of do their thing here.
Well, they were very aggressive to start the game. Efficiency with Wiggins over the course of the game is not exactly where you wanted. He was 8 of 20, but the ability to bend the defense early, I think, helped Tyler. I think the fact that Bam and Wiggins were going downhill consistently, that's where you want them. And I think this is a matchup where they can continue to do that. I do think Bam will have a good game here. I would anticipate them go to him a little bit more. You mentioned Okongwu has not. I just looked at some of the numbers. I mean, Bam's had some games against him. I feel fairly comfortable they could. They don't have a lot of bench depth up front. They're pretty thin up there. If they're going to go with Young, with Georges Niang as a backup 5 in some of this stuff,
Bam needs to go at him every time.
Well, and if that's the case, I think Spo needs to get Bam back in the game. If he has Kyle Anderson out there or something, get Bam back out there, okay, and allow him to work in those moments, because that could be critical there. As I look at this matchup, and I know I picked against the Heat against the Bulls. I thought they'd lose a close game. I said on playback before the game, either the Heat will get a blowout or they'll lose a close game. It was closer to a Heat blowout the way that actually played out. I just feel better about this game than I did about the Chicago game for them, though. I keep looking at it, I'm like, as long as they don't shoot the ball the way they shot it in that 86-point game, I don't know. I don't see a ton of answers that the Hawks have here. Reece Shea has been very good for the last 2 months of the season, but I watched the playing game, and you can see where the Heat can exploit him. I don't think he's quite ready for a big game in this kind of situation. You mentioned them not having Bogdanovich. I think that's a big deal. He always hurt Miami. And I'll go to number 5 and the final one here is they can't just let some random go off here. Okay. We talk and that's the thing and not that Bogdanovich was a random, he wasn't, but we were always like, okay, we're worried about Trey. It's going to be Bogdanovich that hurts him. It's going to be
somebody else
in the playoffs. Right. I just don't know who it would be here. I don't see the big game from Reece Shea. Karis LeVert off the bench has a habit, and he started to do this in the game in Miami, where he'll go on a little bit of a blitz for like 3 or 4 minutes. He's a scorer. He can get to the basket. And he has hurt them, whether he's been with Cleveland or some of the other teams he's played with, or the Nets. So he, I guess, would be my one wild card concern here. But I don't know. I don't know where they go. I mean, they're not going to feed Okongwu for 20 points or anything like that. And again, I think you'll be able to hold Reece Shea under probably 15. I looked at the numbers in the last game, watched that game against Orlando. Orlando played him with size and gave him problems. I don't know. To me, as long as they don't let someone, I don't think Man's going to go off on them off the bench. We know who the 3 guys they're going to play are. I don't know. Am I wrong? Am I wrong to be somewhat confident about this game? I just feel like Spo has such a handle on Trey. He's always had a handle on 2 guards, Trey and LaMelo. Those 2 guys put up their worst numbers against Miami. You give him a primary ball handler to focus on, and we know you've talked about this. They know how to handle it. And they even figured it out with Giddey to a certain extent in this last game. That's the easiest thing for him to scheme up, I feel like. It's when you get these random shooters all over the place that the Heat are effed. But I kind of feel like he'll be able to handle Trey. That's
the thing. It's like there's so much confidence with him being able to handle Trey as a scorer. And I think that's why kind of how disciplined they are with their help defense becomes such an important thing in this game. And by the way, I'm not necessarily a Trey fan. I don't love everything he does. I just think he's a very great player as far as specifically the passing stuff. I think he's an awesome passer, of course, great shooter. Don't love everything he does. And of course, he's tiny and not a great defender. But, as far as they've done such a great job on him in the past that it's easy to be confident there. And like you mentioned, as a result of that, almost it's like they're constantly helping so much and so worried about one guy that they end up giving angles or open shots to other dudes. And it's funny you mentioned that because the other guys, because last game was the blueprint for what can go wrong if they're not disciplined, right? Like,
Right.
So they gave up 112 actually in that last game, but the thing is that they gave up 17 to Karis LeVert, 14 to Terrence Mann, 15 to Okongwu, and 14 to Vic Krejci. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing. I'm not sure if I'm saying his name right here.
And he didn't even play on the play-in either. He seems to be their 10th right now. Yeah,
that's true. So yeah, it's just in general, like I believe this is the game where the Hawks hit 18 threes.
Yeah.
So yeah, like you can't. I think they're gonna have to figure out that balance of like not letting other guys get hot, not giving up too many angles for drives to the rim. Just in general, like you can't let that happen. That's like, I don't know what's 15 times 4, like whatever that is. You can't give up that amount of points to these other guys here, and they all finish a great efficiency here. Like I just think that you have to avoid. Eventually, just go back to your defensive identity and stick to it. Like that foundation needs to be there, or else this game can get out of hand. Because that's what we know that they do. Like they have one great perimeter defender. Okongwu is a solid 5, but they're not a good team defense. They're a very prolific offense. So if you cut off the head of the snake and you're not giving up too much on with the other guys, and you stick to that foundation, I think that'll already be more than enough. Because I don't think they need to have a hot shooting game to beat the Hawks defense.
The last game in Miami, the Hawks got off to a really fast start. They were like up 15-4 or something along those lines. When Davion, Highsmith, and Anderson came in, it changed the game. And so that may be why Spo wants to leave it alone this time. It's just figure, look, I got 48 minutes to make it up. But he's got to have a quick hook, though. If Trey is getting comfortable early with whatever the Heat are throwing at him, and Davion's not one of the people he's throwing at him, he's got to get Davion on the court, okay? And then and deal with it from there. You can't wait. I don't think he will. Again, this team's motivated to make the playoffs. This is what the organization wants, and they've got an opportunity against a very beatable team. In a building where this organization is very comfortable. By the second quarter, they'll be doing Heat chants if the Heat can get up. So this is, again, things are starting to come back around to them. Totally different challenge if they win this game and what they would have to deal with on Sunday. But I think this is winnable for them. I do, because I just don't – I think Trey would be really good on the Heat. Against the Heat, I'll take the Heat against him. I just think they know all of his tendencies. They know eventually he's going to revert to the 28-foot stuff, and he'll make a couple. But as long as he doesn't get too hot from there, they can live with it. And not having Johnson, not having Hunter, not having these kind of wing options with some experience, I feel like they'll be able to control the rookie. I do. I don't think the rookie's there. Honestly, I think the Heat will get more from Ware than they get from Reece Shea. So we'll see how that goes. But I like him in this game, which is probably the kiss of death. Anyway, Alex, appreciate it. We'll have more up on the feed as we go. Also, check out the YouTube channel, doing an episode with Alex Dono on a similar topic. I may do something with Greg as well. We'll have coverage for you. Playback.tv/5RSN Friday night. Game is in Atlanta, and we got you covered. Have a good one, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the 5 on the Floor on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. After all, someone needs to listen to my dad.